What's up, everybody? This is Windy City Gridiron Radio with you, as always, your host, Robert Zaglinski. And after a crazy free agency period for the Bears, probably one of the more aggressive and noteworthy free agencies for this team in a long time and really historically ever, I thought it'd be appropriate to bring in the editor-in-chief, as where I am the right-hand kind of editor assistant editor to him. I thought it'd be pretty appropriate to bring on Lester Wiltfong, your humble leader of WCG, where we can kind of recap what this big free agency meant for the Bears. Lester, what's up?
How's it going, Robert?
It's going well. I think we're in full optimist prime season where we're feeling really good about the Bears.
Yeah.
That's because no games have been played, so you can just put the team on paper and say Super Bowl, but that's what that does. I also might be a little tired, so I'm probably going to be more optimistic than usual. So
that's good. That's good for a change. I like it.
That's good for a change. To recap, in case you've been under a rock and you follow the Bears, they went out and got widely considered the consensus number one receiver available, Allen Robinson. 3 years, $42 million, with I believe I'm not sure what his guarantees were.
18 million, I think it was.
It was 18 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Then they went out and got a number 2 tight end or a 1B, depending how you look at it. And Trey Burton, 4 years, 32 million, 22 million guaranteed. Taylor Gabriel, an explosive slot weapon, 4 years, 26 million, 14 million guaranteed. Cody Parkey, your Robbie Gould revolving door air quotes replacement.
Yeah.
Getting starting money at 4 years, 15 million, 9 million guaranteed. And Chase Daniel, now the second highest paid backup in football, 2 years, 10 million, 7 million guaranteed. There are also some other re-signings that we'll get to later in a key situation that unfolded on Friday, but that was the big haul, Lester. That was Ryan Pace after 3 years of kind of hitting and missing. I mean, you had Akeem Hicks and Danny Trevathan here and there. He went out and aggressively went for home runs on his top targets. I think he only really missed out on Albert Wilson, and Taylor Gabriel's a hell of a fallback to Albert Wilson, and completely eliminated any need the Bears originally had for skill positions. I mean, I'm almost still in shock days later at how quickly all of this unfolded and how he was able to nail this.
Yeah, I thought there'd be a little bit of a bidding war going on with some of these players, but it was just crazy how it all unfolded. Like you said, I've been saying all along that I really thought that the Bears were going to be aggressive this offseason. Just to take a look at how the team was constructed. The rebuild is going into the 4th year now. It just made no sense to dump a lot of money into free agents the first 2 years because the Bears were going to suck. You know, they had John Fox, their head coach. I've said all along he's an A to B coach. That's all he is for you. And at some point, Ryan Pace is going to get his guy to lead the team to what he hopes is the championship. And that's what he did. He has Matt Nagy now. He's going to dump some money into free agency. And that's what happened. I'm excited. I mean, the recent poll we ran at WCG, I think it was yesterday I ran it. Bears fans are all excited, and it's A for the letter grade. A is 60% of the vote, and B is 35% of the vote. So fans are excited about what happened with free agency this year.
Lester, are you saying that Ryan Pace isn't stupid and actually slow at the end of a lame duck conservative coach that doesn't fit modern football? Is that what are you like legitimately trying to sell that right now? I can't believe you.
I was for the John Fox hire at the time because I looked at him as, like I said, an A to B coach. He's coming in. He's trying he wants a pro in there with Mark Trestman. The Mark Trestman era was just bad. It was just the locker room it was like a mess with the stuff with the fighting in the media, the fighting on the locker room. It was a mess. I understood the hire. It wasn't the most exciting of hire, but I understood why he did it. And again, I always looked at Fox as A to B. He was never going to be the championship kind of coach, and that's what he has now. And whether you believe that Ryan Pace was kind of told or suggested that he get John Fox in there, that's up to you to decide. But I feel there was some stuff with management, telling him this is the guy. I want a vet head coach with a young GM, and I think Ryan Pace kind of went along with the program. But now, the gloves are off. It's his team. He has his quarterback. It's time to spend some money and get this team where it needs to go.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree. I'm just doing my typical shtick.
Yeah, yeah.
At any rate, I think that's an important point. And this is something I've often talked about on Twitter. I think I'll eventually write about this at some point. The Bears' best window to win a championship with Ryan Pace and now especially Matt Nagy. I mean, they can still do it years from now, but that's provided Trubisky becomes great and like a
Yeah.
top 5-star quarterback. Is the next 4 years while Trubisky's at his cheapest and he's not eating 15% of their salary cap.
Yeah.
So if you look at the way the deals are structured, you have Allen Robinson 4 years. I mean, guaranteed money aside, we're looking at the way the money shakes out if the guys play out their deals. So 4 years for Robinson, 4 years for Burton, 4 years for Gabriel, 4 years for Parkey, 2 years for Daniel, but that can always obviously be extended depending on how effective he is.
Yeah.
And you're seeing Kyle Fuller even at 4 years after his offer sheet on Friday. They're building all of this to a crescendo to where they want to compete right now. They want to win right now. People aren't going to believe in them because there hasn't been a recent amount of success. They're not a national sexy team. So, oh man, it's just so everyone else sees the Vikings or everyone else sees the Aaron Rodgers or everyone else even sees Matthew Stafford, even in their own division. But the thing is, are you really going to stop competing because all those other teams exist? Are you not going to put your best foot forward? We don't know, and they don't know what Trubisky is as far as real game action is, but they think they have the pieces in place to be able to surpass those teams, to be able to surpass those teams in their division and in the conference and the NFL as a whole, because this is their best chance. So, I mean, I commend the aggressiveness to kind of take advantage of this window.
Well, the Bears are high on Trubisky. I mean, that's the key. And you mentioned it. You know, having a quarterback on the rookie deal. I mean, it's relatively cheap. I mean, the quarterback is always going to be the most expensive player when you have the guy. So having him on a cheaper deal now is the time to spend the money, and that's what the Bears are doing. They're structuring the contracts, like you said. Everything is going to be falling into place in this window. So the Bears got to get it done. I mean, I don't think they're going to be going to be the champs next year, per se, but they're on the right path, I believe.
Right, they're putting the pieces into place to eventually do it. Like they want to be relevant next year. They don't want to they don't want to go 5-11 or 6-10. They want to be playing meaningful football at least in December,
Yep.
or maybe sneaking in for a wild card.
That's the key.
That's the key, absolutely. Let's talk about each of these fits. So obviously the big fish is Allen Robinson. He is your classic number one receiver. He's coming off a torn ACL, but in 2015 he produced one of the more impressive recent seasons by a receiver, 14 touchdowns, 1,400 yards. In my opinion, when he's at his peak, he is one of the 10 best receivers in football, and he's being paid like it right now. $14 million per is the 10th highest salary of any receiver in the NFL. What is he going to do for Trubisky? What's he going to do for this offense?
He's 6'3", so he has the length that you want out of a guy. He can do it all. I mean, he can play outside, he can play the slot. He's a really good route runner. He has really good hands. Like you said, he is a legit top flight receiver, and he's just going to be huge for this offense. I mean, the stuff he can do on the outside is going to be great, but the stuff he does in the slot when it gets down by the goal line is going to be really good for this team as well.
And what's important too is the attention he'll draw. Number one receivers like him get double coverage. Receivers like him get a safety over the top, and that in turn will help a Cameron Meredith or a Taylor Gabriel, who Gabriel even noted in his introductory press conferences, when safeties and corners start inching towards other guys, that's when I do that. That's when I do my damage. That was a paraphrased quote, but that's the kind of effect that Robinson will have in this offense.
Yeah, and a guy like Gabriel, he understands playing with the top guy because he played with Julio Jones.
That's a perfect example. I think in an underrated aspect, I know people don't often look at this as necessarily important, but I think the kind of guy Robinson is off the field, I think the kind of magnetic personality he is, as more of like that kind of I don't know a great word to describe it. A guy with an attitude. Yeah. A guy that's much more outspoken. The Bears don't have many of those personalities. They have a lot of more quiet guys. I think Trubisky's kind of that guy on the field, that guy on the field that's quiet. You have Tariq Cohen and Akeem Hicks that are outspoken, but most of them more or less keep to themselves. Seems like the guy that's eager to own a city, that's eager to be like one of the faces of the franchise, and then that's kind of eager to get in guys' faces when he's producing on the field. I think this team needs that. And I think this team needs the guy that kind of takes that attention.
He seems like he is an alpha, and he seems like he does have that wideout diva gene in him, which is good. I mean, that's what you want out of a guy like him. So, if he can live up to what he's getting paid and what he's done in the past, I think it's just going to be huge for the Bears.
Let's move over to Trey Burton. So Burton, again, and I have to keep saying this in the last few podcasts, Burton is not taking Adam Shaheen's job, everybody. That's not what he was brought in to do. He's a completely different position.
But he's making so much money. He's definitely the guy now, right?
He's definitely the guy now. Oh man, Shaheen can't block rookie tight, because every rookie tight end can block, Lester.
Yeah.
No. They play. Burton is essentially only a tight end in name because he never lines up in line. Yeah. So what is Burton going to bring to this offense besides not taking Shaheen's job away?
He's that classic Joker tight end. I mean, if the stuff that Zach Miller did, in the last couple of years when he was healthy, that's kind of stuff that Burton will do. The difference is with Miller, he did line up in line every now and again because through the years Zach Miller became a passable blocker. I mean, he wasn't a very good blocker, but he was okay with Burton. They'll occasionally have him lined up in line. It all depends on the matchup, but for the most part, he'll be flexed out. He'll be split out wide. He'll be doing stuff possibly out of the backfield. He's just a weapon for this Matt Nagy offense, and he has great hands. He has really good speed. I think he ran a 4.6 the combine. His problem in Philly, he was just stuck behind a lot of good tight ends. So, there's a reason why he was one of the top tight ends in the market, and that's because what he's done as a professional. He deserves this kind of paycheck at 4 years and $22 million guaranteed. He's gonna be a top tight end in the league. You mentioned that he's the 6th highest paid tight end in the league. So should he have a bigger role? So not necessarily where he's eclipsing Shaheen, but should he be a guy that's catching 40 or 50 passes as opposed to a guy that's catching 30 passes for 251 yards? Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at what Zach Miller did.
Ball.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Zach Miller did the last couple of years, I mean, if he wasn't hurt, he was on pace to have 50, 60 balls thrown to him. I think that's what we're going to see out of Burton. I think you have to be with the skill set he brings, and it's such a tough matchup when you have a guy like him in the slot against either a smaller nickelback or against a bigger safety. He's going to have the athletic edge on some safeties. He's going to have the edge against middle backers and linebackers will have the edge there, and so he's a tough matchup. He's good size, good speed. He's a matchup problem, and in this offense, it's all about the matchups. He's gonna scheme people where he wants them and get him in the right matchup, and he's gonna have the quarterback exploit it.
The common theme with Burton too, and a lot of these additions is the variety. You kind of just mentioned it. The versatility that they're going to offer the Bears in packages. You can have Burton and Shaheen on the field at the same time. You can have Taylor Gabriel, who we're going to discuss in a second, with Tariq Cohen on the field at the same time, along with Allen Robinson. And you can have them line up mostly anywhere because these are all smart and intelligent and capable athletes that they're going to continually work to have defenses on their heels. Before we move to the next guy, so you're thinking Burton's going to catch 50 or 60 passes and have a bigger role offensively. So your 2017 second-round pick, Shaheen, Burton isn't taking his job, but if Burton's catching that many passes, where does that leave Shaheen?
And I think Shaheen is going to be your top guy that's going to be blocking more for you. I think with his size and his strength and his ability that he showed that he's willing to block, I think you get him in camp this year, and if he can show that he can do that, he'll be your primarily inline guy. But he also has the speed and athleticism and the height to be a big target in the red zone. So I think you're going to still see Shaheen get his fair share of targets. But again, he's still a raw prospect. He's not the route runner that Burton is. So you may not see him doing as much stuff in the passing game, but it's not like he's not going to be a weapon. He's 6'6". He's a big guy in the red zone. I think you're going to still see him getting some targets down there.
Yeah, you'll still see him featured. He won't have a stretch where he's only getting 8 total targets through 8 games. So
yeah,
that's for sure. John Fox, just mentioning that. We kind of touched on him a little bit. Taylor Gabriel. So he was the Bears' fallback to Albert Wilson. That was the guy that the chief slot receiver that ended up with the Dolphins. And Gabriel, I think it's almost a discredit to call him a fallback because he's one of the most explosive weapons in football. This is one of the few, true handful of guys, when you get the ball into his hands, quite literally anywhere on the field, he can take it to the house. He's a one-touch touchdown player. and he's unique in that he's 5'8", but can play on the outside. So it's just that he's such a terrific athlete as a receiver that he's able to excel despite his limitations.
I was shocked.
Really going to win this offense, yeah.
I was shocked when the Bears got him. I looked at him. I saw 5'8". I saw, he's a guy for the slot. But then you see him talking, and he said most of his stuff was done on the outside. So then, of course, I looked into it, and it's true. He's the guy that plays outside. Again, with this Bears offense, where they're going to have so many varied formations, he may come in as the number 3, but the way they're going to shift and move guys around, he'll be outside a lot as well. So. And I think I saw a stat today on Twitter where he led the league last year in touchdowns off screen passes. So again, he's really exciting with the ball in his hands. It's just again another weapon for Mitch Trubisky here.
I think it was an interesting article you shared last week. Talk about like the Trestman designation. I think you wrote about this a few years ago about there being any designated receiver hierarchy.
That's kind of the West Coast offensive staple. I mean, there is no actual slot receiver per se, because what they're going to do is they're going to have it all depends on the formation call is where you have the guy lined up. So if you guys have your traditional X, Y, Z, is X and Z are your receivers, the Y is your tight end. If your third receiver is your whatever you call them, your F or whatever you want to call them, it depends on the scheme, the formation, whatever it is. But it all depends on what the play call is. If you call red right slot, for example, that could be a play where the X now becomes into the slot. It all depends on what you tag your players with, where they line up, and the way the offense is set up. You can have him anywhere you want. So if you want to have Cam Merritt in the slot, who he did a lot of good work in the slot there a couple of years ago, then that's the formation. If you have the big guy Robinson in the slot, and that's the best matchup you have, then that's what you're going to have there too. And then you have Gabriel; he'll play some in the slot as well. He did say most of his stuff is done on the outside, but in this offense, they're going to put him wherever they feel the best matchup is, and that's what they're going to do all year long.
And again, that's the beauty of it. You keep touching on it. These guys can line up everywhere. They're not one trick ponies. That's what's going to differentiate this offense. I think another thing to note is that Gabriel, which with Nagy coming from Kansas City, he had Tyreek Hill there, who's one of a similarly small player. I think Hill is 5'9" as a receiver and like kind of returner type. So I kind of compare how Gabriel plays to Hill as kind of a Diet Coke version or a diet version. Well, that's a perfect analogy, right? So if it's just kind of interesting to me that Nagy essentially that was the Bears' fallback to Wilson, and in a way that might benefit them more to have a similar player the way Nagy worked with the Chiefs. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Let's talk about Cody Parkey. Cody post revolving door Robbie Gould era. Cody Parkey, who was camp competition until I believe we saw his deal for 4 years and essentially making 3 of it guaranteed, and guy kicking 91% of his kicks. So interesting that is considered camp competition. What does this deal signify, Lester?
Well, he's finally a legit kicker. I mean, it's no more Barth. He's out of there, and I think they had a Ted Nugent. No, it wasn't Ted Nugent. It was a Mike Nugent. I think it was in the last year as well. So just having a guy that is actually going to be, the guy as a kicker, that's what the Bears need. And I looked up his stats like a week ago, and if he would have enough kicks to qualify, I think he'd be the 7th all-time guy for field goal percentage in the NFL. So he knows how to kick. He'll be a good replacement for what they've had the last couple of years.
And I think this is something that is a little underscored or a little understated. The Bears going out and getting a legit kicker, by statistical measure, a top 10 kicker with a big leg. Let's say Cody Parkey is a former NFL rookie scoring leader.
Yeah.
Record.
Kevin Butler's record.
Yeah, ironically, from I believe the 85 Bears too, 85 right?
85 Bears, yeah.
Yeah, whoa, everything's coming full circle. It's coming soon. It's coming soon.
Yeah.
So he broke that in 2014. Then he got injured.
Yeah.
In 2015, a groin injury that eventually led to his release from Philadelphia. Then he got a chance from now current special teams coordinator Chris Tabor with the Browns. He struggled that season, but it was Tabor giving him that chance to get back in the league and revitalize himself. And now last year, he's finally got his confidence back. He's finally accurate, and the Dolphins are a little bit relying on him. And he's back with the coach that gave him a chance, which to me speaks volumes of a relationship that could pay off really well for the Bears. And for the other, this speaks to the fact that the Bears plan to contend. So this time, when Trubisky finishes off a 4th and 13 run while we're all sitting at a random bar in Chicago, the kicker doesn't shank a 43-yard field goal attempt. Absolutely shank it. Parkey's going to be a guy that can make that kick. It's not going to waste the franchise quarterback's effort. Yeah. Overall, he's going to be a guy that gets you points when your ideal high-flying tempo, versatile offense doesn't get in the end zone on rare occasions. So this is another move by Pace, kind of like underline what he expects from the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, he was 91% on field goals last year. In his career, he's made a 6 of 7 field goals from 50 plus. He doesn't have the biggest of leg, but I think that's something that, as the groin heals up, I think that's something we'll see more of him. He was 4 for 4 as a rookie, so he obviously has the leg here. So this is a guy that, like you said, he's going to be a big part of the offense. He's going to score a lot of points, and if this offense evolves like we all expected it's going to evolve, he's going to be a huge part of what they do here.
Maybe he'll break another scoring record next year.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
Optimist Prime.
Yes.
Chase Daniel, new Bears backup. I don't remember who said this, but I remember reading this, I think, back in around right when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, that you're only as good as your backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how you look at salary, the Bears have the second best guy in the league. Despite Chase Daniel only starting 2 starts, he's the second highest paid backup quarterback in the league now, only to, ironically, Foles. What's Daniel going to bring to this team? And is it kind of a leap of faith with his limited sample size? Should he have to step in?
I think it's the knowledge he brings is the most important thing for him. He understands the offense. He's a really good, from what I understand, I read up a lot about Daniel, and everywhere he's been one of the top guys in that room. I mean, he understands X's and O's. He understands his offense. He's good at explaining it as well. So he's like another coach in that room. And that's something that is going to help the quarterback in Chicago, because he's have a brand new offense. It's good to have a guy in there that knows what he's doing in Daniel. And his playing, he hasn't played a lot, yes, but he is a classic West Coast kind of guy. He understands the West Coast offensive system. He has a good enough arm to execute what he has to do. He doesn't have a huge arm, if you look back to what he's done, through college and stuff. But he's capable. I mean, this is his second, pretty decent deal. A few years ago, he got a big deal to be the starter, but he got beat out. It's just kind of one of those things where, he's just pigeonholed now as the backup guy, but he's making a hell of a living off it.
Yeah, he has. I mean, ideally, that'd be the job anyone would want, backup quarterback. It's the best job in the world until you actually have to play. And I think even him playing, that's the most dire extreme. That's not what the Bears really expect. It's the emergency. It's like having a quality emergency plan. If he plays, the Bears season's essentially over, because that means Trubisky's injured, or if he plays for an extended period of time, that is.
His time in the NFL, I'm looking at it now, he only has 2 starts in his whole career. He's played in 57 games, but again, he's a guy that understands his offense everywhere he's been. The coach rave about him. The starting quarterbacks have a lot of good things to say about him. He knows what he has to do in the West Coast system. So I have no problem if he has to play for a small stretch. Like you said, if Trubisky goes out, the season's toast anyway.
Yeah, it'll be hard to replicate what Nick Foles did with the Eagles. That's kind of a rarity in like a once in a lifetime type thing. One more new addition, who might be an underrated signing, and then we'll recap the crazy Friday situation. I'm sure most know what we're alluding to by now, and other re-signings and returns. Aaron Lynch. So 2014 and 2015, he had a total of 12.5 sacks. He of course played in 2014 under current Bears defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. So this is a coach that he kind of considers a mentor, who originally gave him a chance in the NFL, a former 5th-round pick. And now he comes to the Bears, who desperately need defensive edge help, who really have nothing behind Leonard Floyd. What's Lynch going to bring to this defense is kind of like another chance at a revitalization, Lester.
Yeah, I think he has to be in shape. That's key for him. He was a little heavier last couple of years in San Fran. Part of it is because he played defensive end. So they asked him to bulk up a little bit. But from what I understand, it wasn't good weight. So he has to get, back in shape like he was the first couple of years in the NFL. And if he does that, I think he's a guy that, he could end up starting opposite Floyd for you. He has pretty good pass rush skills. He's pretty good at setting the edge. But again, it's all about him being in shape and being healthy. If he is, like I said, he could be the starter opposite Floyd.
Now, if we're calling him the starter opposite Floyd, does that preclude them from, is that like a rotational starter where he's sharing a good volume of his snaps, or are you thinking of him as a guy that could kind of break through? I mean, he's still only 25 years old, so he's got, if he gets into shape, he has a lot left in the tank to where maybe he's again a guy that's getting 6 or 8 sacks, which would be pretty good as your second edge player.
Yeah, I mean, if Ryan Pace has had some luck getting these guys on the real small deals that come in and they prove it. So if he's the guy that does that, I mean, I think that's good for the Bears. I'm not sure where I saw it. They compared this signing to the Hicks signing, and they said that with Hicks, he came in kind of, it wasn't expecting a lot from him. He ended up being, really, really good. So if Lynch can come in, if he's in shape, if he can get back to what he did when he was, with Vic Fangio the first time, which was, he had a pretty good rookie season that year. And there's a lot of respect between the two of them. If that's something they can get back to, I think we may see him have a really nice season. But again, the Bears may go out in the draft and get a guy on the edge as well. So if that's the case, now you're back in rotation. Plus, he brought back Sam Acho, who's going to be in the mix as well, who's good as your fourth or fifth outside backer. But I think last year he showed he can do a little bit more for you. But it all depends what they bring in. But right now, it looks like Lynch is, on paper, at least he's your starter right now opposite Floyd.
Yeah, the thing is, too, is that the Bears were going to have to get creative. They weren't going to have, so defensive edges, I think you'll agree with me, was their biggest need. It is still their biggest need on defense, but they weren't going to be able to fix that in free agency. It was going to be about finding depth, and Lynch is kind of one of those guys where they're going to plug in a hole and see what happens. Okay, so now we're going to move over to re-signings and returns. And the headliner here is, we had a little bit of drama, and Bears Twitter can't handle this based on how names go. Oh my goodness, the Packers offer sheeted Kyle Fuller, Lester. Oh, Ryan Pace didn't expect this. What's he doing? He clearly didn't plan for this, for Fuller to get offer sheeted by a transition tag, which is designed for Fuller sheets to come in from anybody. Oh, he clearly didn't plan for this at all. Oh, wait, he matched the Packers offer sheet within 3 hours.
Yeah.
Really, really quickly. That would probably suggest that he was really comfortable with the deal that he gave out to Fuller, which is 4 years, $56 million, and I believe $18 million guaranteed. Just has a weird structure.
Yeah.
What happened here, Lester? I mean, did Ryan Pace get fleeced again?
No, I think the plan all along was exactly what played out. Like you said, the structure of the deal is kind of odd. I'm not sure that's something that Pace would have done had he been in charge of making the contract himself. But I think he ended up paying what he thought he would. The market is, but the guarantee I think is a little lower than what I think Pace expected. So when the guarantee came in that low, and everything, like I said, the structure of it's weird, but it's when you think about it, is he a top corner in the NFL? No, but he is the Bears' top corner, so you have to bring him back. And again, with the way the money's structured, it's a 4-year deal. We're talking about the 4-year window with the quarterback not being paid huge amount. It all works for the Bears, and you have to bring him back because he showed some promise last year.
Yeah, and you couldn't. They weren't going to let him go to the Packers,
No.
but you couldn't let him go to the Packers either, because that's probably the Packers' top defensive need for themselves. They just traded Demarius Randall. They really wanted Kevin King. They could have really used Fuller. That was, as much as they structured it weirdly to kind of assuage the Bears or push the Bears away from matching that offer sheet. They did want Fuller. That was an earnest attempt, and they couldn't, by any justification, let him go there. I just find it important to note that. So there was a bit of a tizzy with a prominent national writer, we won't name names, who was talking about the franchise tag as being a viable option for Fuller, not understanding the situation and not understanding how franchise tags typically work. Franchise tags so rarely actually facilitate long-term deals, which is what they were originally designed for. And it's more of an ideal that they actually get a player to stay in a city. I mean, it happened with Alshon Jeffrey, where the Bears just used it twice, and that extended his stay, and eventually he left because they never actually worked on any kind of long-term deal. It's more used as an excuse by teams to put off deals, to kind of procrastinate on keeping guys on getting guys onto their second contract. The transition tag, meanwhile, as we just completely noted, that was the Bears perfectly facilitating Fuller. They wanted his future here. They understood his market, and I mean, it worked out. Unless Fuller wasn't going to get $18 or $19 million. I think Pace was very confident in that.
Well, the franchise tag would have started his request a lot higher than what it did as the transition tag. The tag would have paid him, I think, 12.9. He ended up getting 14 a year, which is a little higher than the 12.9. But if you would have given him the franchise tag, I think that would have been closer to 15, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I think he may have. I think he may have expected a little raise off the franchise tag. He may have expected 16, 17 a year. So by making with the tag they gave him, I think that was the best way to go. Pace had no intention on losing him. So I think everything worked out exactly how he planned. Like I said, the structure's not the best. It kind of gets it's really backloaded. But I think with the cap it this year being only 6.5 million, I think Pace may do something creative with doing some more front loader contracts now and just take advantage of that structure.
Let's move over to Prince Amukamara, who I'm kind of alarmed by how his deal is structured. And I guess it depends on what happens with the draft, because now I really expect the Bears to draft a quarterback high as an eventual replacement plan. Because Amukamara, for as much as he had a great 2017 season, let's be honest, he had, for reference, 3 years, 27 million, 18 million guaranteed. So such a 2 years guaranteed for a 28-year-old cornerback that hasn't played in a 16-game season, and I believe 4 seasons or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
At any rate, he's rarely played in 16 games. And last year, when he enjoyed, in my mind, his career season, he was the less targeted cornerback in comparison to Kyle Fuller and did worse. He doesn't have any ball skills. And again, he has that injury history.
Yeah.
And the Bears are committing to him as that number 2 guy. I understand Vic Fangio likes his length. I understand Vic Fangio likes his balance and comfort. And I'm not going to complain too much about the Amukamara signing because Fangio and the Bears are comfortable with him because he has that familiarity. I'm just a little wary as to this potentially blowing up in the Bears' face unless they have something kind of as a fallback.
You know, he is a solid CB2, and I think that's what the Bears expect out of him. He's making pretty good money. I didn't think that contract would be this big, but I think that's just a way for the Bears to kind of tell him, you know, we appreciate what you did last year for us, coming in on a 1 year deal. I think it was 1 year for 7, so he's getting a pretty big raise off what he did last year. But the way his contract is structured, you mentioned, there's out after the 2019 season. So, like you said, if they do draft a guy, then maybe he plays the slot corner for a year or two, and then eventually he takes over for Prince. But you know, I'm okay with Prince coming back. I mean, you got to have a couple guys that you trust, and Vic Fangio obviously trusts Amukamara and Fuller. So bringing both those guys back, I think, is only going to help this defense.
And really, as far as that as returns, we have 2 guys that are still in limbo who will also incite panic. Today, Cameron Meredith was visiting the Colts. Oh my God, Ryan Pace didn't plan for this. No contingent. Oh, the restricted free agent Meredith is visiting teams, Lester. Oh my goodness. What are you doing, Pace? Yeah, anyway, he's visiting the Colts. This is a guy that's coming off a torn ACL who has never had even a 900-yard season, and the Colts are not going to offer him 10 or 11 million a year. They're going to give him a mega contract that the Bears won't match. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, you know, I think that the Bears, again, they want this to happen. They want him to go out there and have an offer come in, because let's just say the Bears would have gave him the second round tender and they end up getting him at that price. If he has the season I think the Bears expect him to have, he's going to get a lot of money then after this season. So I think if you get him right now on a deal, 3 or 4 year deal, I think that works out best for the Bears. And I can't see them letting him leave, because he's not going to get a giant contract by the Colts or anyone else. I mean, if it happens, then that's the way it goes. But I think the Bears are set up where, you know, they have a couple receivers now, in that if they do lose Meredith, it would be unfortunate. But I think if it happens, they have, you know, Robinson and Gabriel. And then I think they also look to the draft, because this is a pretty nice draft for receivers in that the second round area where the Bears are going to be picking.
Yeah, see, I don't like you just kind of said it. I don't think we should be really worried about that because I think they're enamored with Meredith. I think they still think he's an ascending player. It's
I
just more
think
about
so.
what the rest of the league thinks.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get Alan Hearns, everybody. Jeez, like just as soon as there's one tweet from Allen Robinson with the eyes emoji, that
Yeah.
doesn't automatically mean they're signing Alan Hearns. Everybody, calm down. Or even Alan Hearns tweeting about which teams were interested in him or have reached out. That also doesn't mean they're signing him.
I
I'm
just
sorry. We
wrote
have
that
to have the
article tonight.
disclaimer. Yeah.
I just wrote that article tonight because I know Bears fans are talking about it. Hearns said the Bears are talking to him. I think, like I said, what I wrote tonight was I think Hearns could be a plan B if Meredith goes. I can't see them both signing here, which is being reported by a few people. That's just not going to happen. I mean, I think Hearns going to get pretty good money, especially if there are 10 teams looking at him like what Hearns is saying. There's just going to be a decent sized contract for Hearns waiting out there. He probably ended up making more than Meredith just because he's wasn't hurt last year. So Cam Meredith will be back next year in Chicago.
It's a distant plan B. It's a distant plan B. All right. Well, with Bryce Callahan, I think he had a visit with the Vikings, or he had an offer sheet from the Vikings. Did he have an offer sheet from the Vikings?
No offer sheet. He spoke with them. The last I heard was they were interested in him, but there's no offer made. So I guess the interest wasn't very high.
Are we considering Callahan a priority? I mean, I think the Bears like him. I don't think they're enamored with him, though, Lester.
He got the same tender as Meredith, so if he does go away, I mean, the Bears aren't getting draft pick in return. I think the Bears like him and Crevan LeBlanc. I think they're pretty similar players. They both have some of the same issues, with injuries. I like Callahan. I think he's a pretty good player, but if the Bears can upgrade, I think they should upgrade.
Overall, what does this free agency period say about what the Bears think about Mitch Trubisky, Lester? Before we talk draft and needs and anything else, what else has to happen this offseason?
I think it says that they believe he is ready to make that leap as a player. They got him some weapons. I think the next step is addressing the O-line a little bit, but just bringing him enough weapons around him and bringing him a coach. I mean, you take a look at everything they've done. If you look at it, it has something to do with Trubisky, the coach, the quarterback coach. They're keeping his guy here. It's the receivers they brought in, the tight end they brought in. Everything points to let's make Mitch Trubisky the best Mitch Trubisky he can be.
Eric asked this too, so this will be one of our Ask WCGs. Without anything else in consideration, or assuming that the Bears fix up their offensive line and fill in some of their defensive holes. I mean, we're in March. Again, we're in March.
Yeah.
But what are your expectations for the 2018 Bears now? Now that they've kind of filled in this stuff and are preparing Trubisky to really be the face of the franchise, the way you just kind of described it.
I think it's a Bears Super Bowl, my friends.
All right.
No, I mean, I think the Bears, they're going to compete this year. They're going to be better this year, obviously.
Give me a record.
It's so early. I'll go 8-8 just to kind of be on the fence here.
Okay. Okay.
Well, the Bears, what they have last year, 5 wins. They're going to be better than last year.
Yeah.
I think there's a famous coach that said every team's basically 8-8, and then if they get a break here or there, they go better. Break here and there, they get worse. I think the Bears, if things go right for them, they could push for a playoff spot, but they are in a tough division. The Packers, they still have Aaron Rodgers. The Vikings, that defense made some big additions. Plus, they hope they have the quarterback figured out. The Lions, the Lions are the Lions. They are kind of up and down, and they have Matt Stafford, who has still never won a playoff game. I know you like to talk about that.
He has never won a playoff game. He has 0 playoff wins, and I think that's a big factor in separating him from the rest of the pack. Stafford has 0 playoff wins.
But the Lions, they've kicked the Bears' ass here the last 5, 6, 7 years.
That was with
Yes.
largely crap in John Fox and Mark Trestman. So that the advantage has been with coaches that weren't tailored to modern offenses and non-franchise quarterbacks. So I think the tide's changing for me. I tweeted this, and I legitimately believe this. I don't think this is my homer bias because I was on a Vikings radio. I had a Vikings radio spot earlier today.
Yeah.
And a Vikings guy believes it. He believes it too. That the Bears have the second best roster in the North now, provided Allen Robinson comes back very well, Cameron Meredith comes back very well. As is, they have the second best roster in the North. The only reason that the Lions and Packers would be above are because Stafford and Rodgers are more established franchise quarterbacks. But
Yeah.
as a whole, obviously Minnesota is a loaded team. And independent of Trubisky, the Bears have a pretty good roster, but no one really seems to want to admit it outside of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with Trubisky too is we don't know what he is. If he's a great quarterback, he potentially elevates the Bears up. That is still too soon to say anything there, but he potentially elevates them above the Vikings. But I really believe they have the second best roster, and I'd expect them to kind of be a 9-7 team, a team that probably maybe gets the number 6 seed in the NFC. Sorry, I know it's March optimism. I'm just saying.
It's possible. I mean, if you look what the Bears did last year, they had a very good defense, and they did this with one of the worst offenses that I've ever seen in my life. It just,
the worst Bears offense, and that speaks volumes for a Bears offense.
I just kept waiting for something out of Dow Loggins. I'm not willing to put it all on him because John Fox was his boss, but there was just nothing going on from the offense all year. The run pass crap was just like, it was ridiculous. The defenses knew what was happening. There was no creativity, and still with all this garbage on offense, the Bears defense was respectable. I think they have to get a couple more pieces in place. I think with Hicks played way too many snaps. Mm-hmm. You have to keep him fresh. You have to find a guy that can rush the passer with Floyd. It can't just be him. And then Floyd, he has to stay healthy. He has to be that guy this year. So, the defense has some pieces in place right now, and with a better offense, keeping that defense fresh, like I said, they could, go after a playoff spot.
You kind of just touched on it, and I'm going to go my full Bill Belichick here. We're on to the draft. What else do the Bears have to do this offseason, Lester? Where else can they fill in their holes? I imagine the draft will be centered more around one specific side of the ball.
They address so much on offense. You would think they're going to go a lot of defense here. But again, with Ryan Pace, you never can tell. He likes to talk about he's the best player available drafter, which we've seen him do for the most part. I mean, he did kind of go after Floyd. So I think if there's a guy that he really covets in this draft, like he did with Floyd and Trubisky, he'll go after him. I don't think he has a problem doing that. But I'm not sure what he does. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend if those 4 quarterbacks go early. If that's the case, then Pace may just stay at 8 and get the best guy available. But there's just so many different ways you can go. I think a corner is a possibility. I think Nelson's a possibility, the guard from Notre Dame. And I think trading back's also in the table. It depends on what's sitting there. The only thing I know he's not going to draft in the first round is a wide receiver.
Well, absolutely. I'm sorry, Calvin Ridley. The Bears aren't drafting him. They're not drafting Calvin Ridley, who is only 16 months younger than Allen Robinson. They're not
the mocks
mock drafts. Oh my goodness. Of a non-special like number 2 receiver. Thank you. So okay, if you're making the Bears pick at number 8 overall, we'll do the first 2 rounds since that's going to be the most relevant.
Yeah.
Number 4 and maybe a trade in number 3 we can't really project right now. So if you're making the pick at number 8 overall, who are you picking? Are you picking Quentin Nelson if he's there, Tremaine Edmonds, Denzel Ward or Joshua Jackson, Roquan Smith perhaps? Who's your guy, Lester?
I think if he's there, I think the Bears are going to go with the guy like with Edmonds. He has that athletic upside. He's 19 years old. I'm not sure if that'd be the guy I would pick. I think I would rather go with Nelson if he's there, but I think Nelson may sneak off earlier.
Yeah, I think Nelson's a guy that'll probably fall to the Colts now with their trade down. They're almost assuredly not taking a quarterback. And at number 6, if there's a run on quarterbacks, Nelson is probably assuredly to be there, and the Colts will be comfortable taking him.
Yeah.
Like you said it, with Edmonds, he's my number 1 pick for the Bears. And I just feel like he's the quintessential type of pace pick. He's an athletic freak. He has upside. They can kind of mold him into what they want. And could you just imagine having a guy that's compared to Anthony Barr, who you can line up as an inside linebacker, so you can effectively take away depth needs there. You can start him in place of Nick Kwiatkowski, or you can have Nick Kwiatkowski. You can move those guys around, or you can have him occasionally play on the edge next to Floyd and move them all over your defense. Could you imagine having 2 guys like that in Floyd and Edmonds on your unit? I can't even fathom the possibility at how many matchup issues this defense would create if they had someone like that in the fold.
I think Edmonds a guy that probably should stay at inside backer, but until we see what the plan is with him, I think the Bears may want to try him on the edge just because he has the size, the length, the speed, and again, he's 19 years old, so the stuff that he's learned in his career, he can change it. I mean, he's not a guy that is actually set in his ways right now. He's so young where he can become whatever the Bears want him to become.
If anything, I would actually prefer him to be used in both capacities. Again, to be like the hybrid. I don't want him focusing solely on edge. I don't want him focusing on inside linebacker. When I evaluate him as my number one prospect for the Bears at number 8, I'm thinking about him doing both things constantly and changing perhaps every other series or every series. So that's what makes him so tantalizing. All right, so number 39 overall. I think it's very likely the Bears trade out of this pick and get a third rounder, maybe get another fourth rounder. So consider that they don't have a third. But what are we thinking here? So a cornerback? Are we thinking a more quintessential edge guy? If Edmonds is going to be playing a lot of inside linebacker, who do you like, Lester?
Yeah, I think having a guy that if they do go Edmonds early, I think getting a guy, if he's there, another edge rusher in the second round is definitely a possibility. I've talked about the Bears going against that, double dipping in that spot. I think it's something that you should do with this draft. I think there's a few guys that have a lot of upside, but I also think they may go for a center guard type player there. It all depends on the draft falls, and that's the beauty of the draft.
Yeah, if anything, their two biggest needs right now, and I think you'll agree with me, defensive edge and then their interior offensive line.
Yeah.
That depends on what you think of Bobby Massey, but they're probably going to roll with Bobby Massey really for one more year unless they can get someone like Mike McGlinchey or Tyrell Crosby, which is unlikely at this point.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's happening. So if we're talking edge guys there in the second, there's Josh Sweat, who I really like, who I think was misused at Florida State. We're very familiar with coaches misusing players here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Carter, another Leonard Floyd clone, who I wrote about for Pro Football Weekly a few weeks back, who's very versatile, who can cover, who can be molded into an effective pass rusher, who will be younger than Floyd coming out. As far as guard and centers, you just mentioned Billy Price is a guy there. Will Hernandez is a guy there. Isaiah Wynn is a guy there. They're all effective power or zone fits that would really They would really be akin to what the Bears are looking for on both the defensive edge and on offense. So those are just a few names to keep in mind as we move forward through this process, through the draft. Lester, do you have anything to add on this whirlwind free agency? I mean, I don't think it's really done. I think the Bears are still going to add some second and third wave guys, but
I think the Bears are going to kind of wait right now and have the market kind of get set for a few guys that are kind of looking for deals. But the Bears, last I checked, they still I think had the fewest players in a roster of anyone in the NFL. They have a lot of spots to fill still, and they're not going to all be done in the draft. So they have to make some more moves here to get some guys in to fill that the 90-man roster. So I think they got some moves to make here. I think I'm going to get a guy to place for center guard here just to bring some competition in. I wasn't happy with the Bradley Sowell addition, bringing him back. I'm not a fan of his play last year. I thought Compton played better than Sowell. To be honest, I'm not sure how the Bears kind of saw Sowell as a better option there, unless they just like Sowell better because he was a little better at tackle, they thought. But again, I didn't see it. I didn't see Sowell playing good at all last season.
Yeah, it's not exactly an ideal option, but with the draft about 5.5 weeks away, and then you're going to have the undrafted kind of scrap heap there right after the draft to kind of sign guys that could potentially make the team out of camp. We're going to have a lot of roster turn, a lot of discussion to go through here.
Yep.
But free agency, I think we can agree, was a rounding success.
Yes.
Ryan Pace finally took control of the organization, put the franchise more or less back on the map and on a path towards contention after a 7-year playoff drought. Perhaps that ends in 2018 thanks to this keying it, and we're kind of ready for it. We're ready. We're primed for it. We're ready to finally see a relevant Bears team that's actually playing meaningful football. I think everyone can agree on that.
It's been far too long for Bears fans.
Way too far.
We're ready.
We're very ready. This has been another episode of WCG Radio. You can follow us on Twitter at WC Gridiron. Follow Lester on Twitter at Wilt Fawn Jr. Follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski. We're going to have you primed for everything in the draft over the next few weeks. This Bears offseason is nowhere near over. Something tells me we're going to have another surprise in store, and I can't wait for the drama and the stories to unfold. Stay classy, everybody.